Hello everyone! In this time, I want to talk about the way Indonesian people learn English. As we know, Indonesian people have their own language or it calls mother tongue. But in this time, we will learn why people, especially in Indonesia, should learn English language. Now let's start to talk about this. There are three content that we will learn about. The first is general knowledge, the second is specific knowledge, and the last is personal knowledge. At the first, we will learn three types. The first is the importance of English language. The second is how English used globally. And the third is how do people acquire English language in general. Let's talk about the importance of English language. Like we all know, nowadays people are trying to study English language as their second language because in business or company, media, or when you are trying to study in academy, they will use English as the second language because nowadays people commonly spoken English language in the world. It's easy to see just how important English is around the world. Many international businesses conduct meetings in English, or universities teach courses in English, and all around the world, tourists and travelers are used English as a common language. I got 10 reasons why we should learn English language. The first is English is a global language in the world. One out of 5 people can understand English language. The second is studying English can help you get a job. English is the language of science, of aviation, computers, diplomacy, and tourists. When you are trying to get a job and you can understand or speaking in English, you can increase your chance of getting a good job in a multinational company within your home country or finding work abroad. The third is language. English language can help you to meet people. When you go traveling or maybe you are a student abroad, you can learn English language so you can talk with another people by using this language. For example, you go to Beijing or you go to Brazil and you cannot understand what their own language, but you can use English so they can understand because we can say that English language is the gate how you can talk with them. The fourth is many scientific papers are written in English. So, for example, when you make a journal or when you try to find something in the book, like commonly they use English language as the first language. So you have to understand what is English language before you do the scientific papers or maybe searching the scientific something on the book. The fifth is English is the language of the media industry. As I said before, TV shows or maybe popular songs are written in English. If you speak English, you won't need to rely on the translation and subtitles anymore, and you can enjoy your favorite TV shows or maybe books or another. Can happen in social media too. Like when you go to Instagram or WhatsApp, they commonly use English. And when you are not understand about English, it's very hard to understand it. English is the language of the internet. This is same with the fifth, but in internet, because internet is very open, or people can use internet, like all people can use internet, and half of the content on the internet was written in English. As well as this, some of the world's large tech companies are based in English speaking countries. The seventh is traveling is a lot easier with a good knowledge of English. Imagine you're Spanish, for example, and you're holiday in Thailand, while your hotel receptionist might not be able to answer your question in Spanish, and have to talk in English so they can understand. Because you cannot talk in Thailand and they cannot understand you in Spanish, so you have to talk about everything in English. Next is English is the one of the most important language in business. Same like before, whether you are a business owner or student or employee, English is incredibly important in the business world. This is very important because English is considered to be the most important business language due to being the facto language of the United States. The need is with English you can study over the world. Like for example, you are a student abroad and you go to Australia or maybe you go to Philippines and you cannot understand what they are talking about because you're not alone as a student abroad. So you can talk in English language because in English language they can understand, not because you have to learn their mother language, but you can talk about English. And the last is English give you access to multiple culture. Now let's talk to how English used globally. This is the text that I found on the article, but I want to say that Huda mentions 5 factors that have made why English is an international globally language. The first is its internal linguistic features. The second is the large number of English speakers. The third is the wide geographical spread of where it is used. The fourth is its importance in fields such as politics, international diplomacy, economics and business, science and technology, and culture. And the fifth is the use of English by countries which currently dominate world's affairs economically, politically, and culturally. Okay, now let's start. How do people acquire English language in general? For example, you are a parent and your children talk about daddy fish water, daddy fish water, and you as a parent will say it's true. Yeah, there is a fish in the water, and this is wrong because you have to tell that your children was wrong in talk. Like you have to tell, yes, you are right, but the truth is there are fish in the river. Now we come up to the second content, specific knowledge. how do Indonesians explore the language in developing language competence? The second is, do Indonesian people imitate patterns of English language? And the third is, how do they examine the functioning of different sound in word building and physical properties behind their production? Okay, making easy generalization about the social function of English is not easy in a country like Indonesia where it's not the first language. And in inner circles country, English by division is used for all communicative situation. But in Indonesia, its role is defined primarily by means of conscious process of language planning. Like they are very didn't notice that English language is very important in their life. Okay, now we come up with, do Indonesian people imitate patterns of English language? And the answer is yes, because if words are flash and grammar is bones, then the flash of Indonesian has an unmistakable English flavor by now. Okay, this is the example that I've got. Example sentence in English, active sentence is, she read a book in the library. And active in Indonesia, dia membaca buku di perpustakaan. And example for the word is, in English, it calls battery. And in Indonesia, baterai. Or maybe in English, contact. And in Indonesia, kontak. Okay, now we learn about how do they examine the functioning of different sounds in word building and physical properties behind their production. We all know that humans' capacity to use their native language is stored in the left hemisphere of the brain in over 90% of the normal population, and which is responsible for speech production and articulation, and the Wernicke's area in the left temporal lobe associated with language development and comprehension. Now, this is what we call Broca's area, Wernicke's area, and we will learn about that. Broca's area is located in the left frontal lobe, and it's considered responsible for articulate language or speech production. Like, for example, she talked about my name is, and the speech production by Broca's area is ma, na, is. Okay, now when we come up together, it becomes my name is. Now, how about Wernicke's area? This kind of aphasia is known as Wernicke's aphasia or receptive aphasia. So, when you ask a person with this problem of a question, they will respond with a sentence that is more or less grammatical. Strained, meaningless but grammatical sentence comfort, a phenomenon called word salad. Now, this is the difference about speaking the heard word. You can see that primacy cortex, Wernicke's area, primary motor cortex, and this is Broca's area. So, when speaking the heard word, it from primary auditory cortex and go to Wernicke's area. After that, Broca's area, and the last is they go to primary motor cortex. And this is the different when speaking the written word. It comes from primacy virtual context and go to vernix area, after that broadcast area, and then the last they go to primary motor cortex. This is the difference when the heard word and the written word are speak. And symptoms of phrenic aphasia include making up meaningless words, producing sentences that do not make sense, speaking in a way that sounds normal but lack meaning, difficulty repeating words or phrases, and the last is being unaware of problem with speech. Early bilinguals seems more likely to use overlapping brain areas, and late bilinguals seems more likely to use different area for each language. And some studies have also suggest that late bilinguals are more likely to use the same cortical areas from understanding what the words mean or vernix, but different areas for grammar and syntax, or it calls broadcast. Now, since I was a person who can learn by listening and watching, I usually improve my language competence by watch movies in English or listening music. Sometimes I also like to search what I don't understand that I learned through YouTube. So I can more understand by watching the videos and listening what the speaker says. What motivates me to keep learning this language? I have a goal that I want to have a good skill in English language. So I decide to learn it very hard until I reach the goal. There are many things that motivate me. Like for example, I want to speak fluently in front of the native speaker. And I want to be like a person who win the competitions because they have a skill in English language and many more. Okay, what difficulties that I haven't solved in learning the language? I still not very good about grammar and ambiguity sentence. I have to read many times until I understand and it takes more time. I want to be someone who can understand only take one time to read and learn. I wish I can do it and I wish I can solve this problem. The next is what difficulties that I have solved. In the past, I wasn't good at listening and I was confused how to solve it. But since I like to listening music, at the first I tried to read the lyrics while listening the music. And now I know the lyric even I'm not search it. And I do it until I know the lyric at the first time I listening the song. And now I learned to listening the native speakers talk not only by the music but maybe by the vlogging on YouTube or by the e-learning. So this is the end of my video. Thank you and I'm very sorry if I do mistake by words and attitude. Thank you. See you again.